When I started dating my boyfriend, his bitter ex-wife, who lived next door, faked a pregnancy, smashed my car, and sent my job a fake background check saying I was a felon, then she left her psych records in my mailbox, so I sent them to HR. When I saw the flashing red and blue lights outside my building that night, I honestly thought someone else was getting arrested. It didn't even cross my mind that the cop car was there for me. But then my name came through the loudspeaker. "Miss Riley Moore, step outside, please." My stomach dropped. I remember freezing at the door with my work lanyard still around my neck. I'd just been suspended that morning after HR told me someone had sent them a background check showing I had 2 fraud charges and a misdemeanor theft record. I've never even had a speeding ticket. So yeah, my week was already hell, and it was about to get worse. When I stepped outside, the first thing I saw was my car, or what was left of it. The entire driver's side was caved in, windshield cracked, mirror hanging by wires. And standing next to it, crying dramatically into her phone like a bad actress, was Erica, my boyfriend's ex-wife. She looked up at me with this twisted grin, the kind that barely hides satisfaction. "Oh my God, Riley, I didn't see your car there," she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound fake. "I'm so sorry. I've been so emotional since finding out about the pregnancy." The pregnancy. Yeah, the fake pregnancy she'd announced a week after my boyfriend, Nate, told her he was seeing someone new, me. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. The officer was talking, asking questions, taking statements. But all I could focus on was the way she kept glancing at me, like she knew she'd just destroyed another piece of my life. Because 2 days earlier, she'd called my job pretending to be from a background check company and emailed them a forged report with my name on it. HR didn't even question it, they just suspended me pending investigation. And now my car was totaled. I remember going back inside after the cops left and just sitting on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by unpaid bills, HR emails, and a sinking feeling that this woman wasn't just jealous, she was dangerous. Then 3 nights later, I found an unmarked manila envelope in my mailbox. No return address. No note. Inside were 20 printed pages, hospital letterheads, psychiatric evaluations, therapy notes. Her full name, birth date, and signatures. It was her, Erica's, confidential psychiatric records. And one particular phrase kept repeating through the notes. "Displays delusional fixation on ex-husband's new relationships." That's when something inside me finally snapped. Because if she wanted to ruin my life, she had no idea what I was capable of when I stopped being afraid. When I first met Nate, I honestly thought he was the safest man I'd ever known. He wasn't flashy or dramatic, just solid, steady. The kind of guy who still opened doors, remembered your coffee order, and actually listened when you talked. We met at a friend's cookout in Austin. I'd just gotten out of a 2-year relationship with a narcissist who cheated on me with a coworker. So I wasn't looking for love. Nate wasn't either. He'd just finalized a messy divorce a few months earlier. He told me about his ex-wife, Erica, the first night we went out. Said she'd struggled with depression after losing her job, that things between them had turned toxic. He didn't trash her, just said, "She needs help I can't give." I respected that. He sounded compassionate, mature. The first few months were easy, he was good to me, no red flags, then small, weird things started happening. It began with social media. A burner account started liking my photos, old ones from years ago, and leaving comments like, "Hope he tells you the truth this time." I laughed it off, blocked, moved on. Then came the phone calls. No one spoke, just breathing. A few weeks later, Nate's ex, Erica, showed up at his apartment while I was there. She had tears streaming down her face and a pregnancy test box in her hand. She told Nate she just found out and that the baby was his. Except Nate had had a vasectomy 3 years before their divorce. He told her that, right there, in front of me. I'll never forget the blank look that crossed her face before she switched gears mid-sentence, pretending she'd miscalculated. After that, she started popping up everywhere, at the grocery store, outside my work, once even outside the gym. I tried to stay calm, but it started getting under my skin. Nate promised he'd handle it, said she just needed time to move on. But I noticed he never blocked her number, never told her off harshly. He said he didn't want to provoke her. Then came the night she accidentally sent me a photo, an ultrasound image. It looked legitimate, and my stomach twisted. I asked Nate if it was possible she was telling the truth. He swore it wasn't, said he hadn't slept with her since the separation. But that doubt, that 1% chance, ruined me for weeks. Then everything crashed fast. First, my HR department called. They said my background check had been flagged. Some updated report showed I had 2 charges from another state. Totally false. They suspended me pending verification. The next morning, someone keyed homewrecker into the side of my car. I knew it was her, but I couldn't prove it. I filed a police report and they basically told me, without evidence, there's nothing we can do. Then, the night of the crash, when she drove straight into my car outside my building, it felt like the final move in a game I didn't even realize I was losing. But when I found that envelope in my mailbox, everything changed. Because it meant someone else, maybe someone from her life, wanted me to know the truth about her. And buried in those records were names, dates, and one particular note that made my heart stop. It mentioned my workplace by name. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor with the papers spread around me, reading every page over and over until my eyes burned. There were therapy notes, medication logs, and progress reports, all from a psychiatric clinic about 15 minutes from where I lived. But one line, buried halfway through a therapist's summary, made me go cold. Patient reports persistent obsession with her ex-husband's new girlfriend, identified as Riley Moore, who works for Liddell Financial. Patient describes intent to expose her as unfit, possibly through online or employment-related means. My job. My actual company name. Written in black and white, months before I'd even met the woman. That was the first moment I stopped feeling sorry for her and started feeling hunted. The next day, I went to Nate's place with the folder in my bag. I remember shaking, not from fear but fury. I wanted him to finally see what this woman was doing, that it wasn't just grief or sadness. It was obsession. But when I showed him the papers, his reaction wasn't what I expected. He looked stunned for a second, then guilty, like there was something he wasn't saying. "Where did you get these?" he asked quietly. "They were in my mailbox," I said. "No note, just this. Someone wanted me to see them." He rubbed his face and muttered something under his breath. Then he said, "You shouldn't have these, Riley. These are medical records. If she finds out you have them, she'll go nuclear." That word, nuclear, stuck with me. He wasn't shocked by what she'd done. He was scared of what she might do next. I told him I wanted to take the records to the police, that maybe this would finally prove harassment. But Nate begged me not to. He said it would make things worse. That maybe I should just lay low for a while. Lay low. After losing my job, my car, and my peace of mind, that night my front door lock jammed. Not broken, jammed, like someone had stuck something in it. I had to call maintenance to replace the whole doorknob. The next morning, I found a piece of notebook paper tucked under my windshield wiper. It just said, "He lied to you too." No signature. No handwriting I recognized. I showed Nate, and he said maybe it was a prank. I didn't believe that for a second. Then, 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Does he still keep her ring in the drawer?" I froze, because I knew exactly what that meant. There was a ring in the bottom drawer of Nate's nightstand. A silver band with a small diamond. I'd seen it once while looking for a charger. He told me he just hadn't gotten around to selling it. Except now, someone knew it was still there. Someone who'd been inside his apartment. That's when the panic started to mix with something darker, suspicion. Because what if this wasn't just Erica acting alone? What if Nate was hiding something too? 2 nights after the ring text, I decided I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I told Nate I was coming over because we needed to talk. But in reality, I just wanted to see how he'd react. When I walked into his apartment, the first thing I noticed was the smell, perfume. Not mine. Sweet, heavy, expensive. The kind of scent that lingers on purpose. Nate came out of the bedroom looking startled, shirt half-buttoned. He stammered something about just getting out of the shower, but I could see the faint outline of lipstick on his collar. I felt my stomach flip. "Nate," I said quietly, "is she here?" He froze. I moved past him and went to the bedroom. The bed was unmade, sheets tangled. And there, on the nightstand next to that stupid ring, was a half-empty bottle of the same perfume Erica wore. I knew it because she'd left it in his car once when they were still married. That was when it hit me. She hadn't broken in. She hadn't snuck around. She'd been invited. I turned back to him, my voice shaking but low. "You let her in here," he started babbling. said she'd shown up crying, saying she was suicidal, that he didn't do anything, that he was just trying to keep her calm. But his voice cracked and his eyes kept darting away. I walked closer and said, "She texted me about your drawer, Nate. She knew about the ring." He didn't answer. That silence said everything. My whole body went numb. This man, the one who'd held me while I cried over the lies she'd told, who swore he'd protect me, had been sneaking her into his apartment while she was actively destroying my life. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just said, "You two deserve each other," and left. That night, I stayed at my friend Maya's apartment. I barely spoke. I just kept replaying everything in my head: the fake pregnancy, the forged background check, the car crash. And now I realized it was all part of something bigger, something orchestrated. Because after I left Nate's place, I got another text. This time from an email address, not a number. It was a scanned copy of the same psychiatric record pages that had been in my mailbox, but this version had something new highlighted in yellow. Patient expresses resentment toward RM, claiming he said he'd leave her once Riley was gone. RM. Riley Moore, he said he'd leave her once Riley was gone. That wasn't something a delusional ex invented. That was something she was told. By Nate. That was when I realized my boyfriend wasn't just complicit, he was part of it. He'd been feeding her lies, manipulating both of us. And I suddenly understood why he was so scared of me going to the police, why he wanted me to lay low. He wasn't protecting me. He was protecting himself. The night I realized Nate had played both of us, something in me went dead quiet. Not angry, not hysterical, just focused. All those weeks of chaos, paranoia, crying in the dark, they turned into something else. A kind of cold clarity. I wasn't going to scream or send a million texts. I wasn't going to block them or move away. No. I was going to end this carefully, completely, and in a way neither of them could see coming. I started by making copies of everything. The psychiatric records, the forged background check, the text messages. I even screenshotted Nate's messages where he promised he hadn't seen Erica in months. Those would come in handy later. Then, I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my cousin Devin. He worked in IT security for a private investigations firm in Dallas. I told him I needed help tracing a sender for some harassing emails. I left out the messy personal details. Devin didn't ask questions. Within 2 days, he sent me a report. The emails that Erica had sent HR at my company. They came from a throwaway account, but the IP address wasn't from her house. It was from Nate's apartment complex. That's when my plan formed piece by piece. First, I needed them both to feel safe. I stopped responding to Erica's weird texts. I stopped going to Nate's. I even sent him one final message. "You're right, this has gotten too messy. I'm walking away, take care of yourself." He didn't reply. Then I played nice at work. HR had reinstated me after they realized the background check was fake, but I still had a pending investigation. So, I kept my head down, smiled, and waited. Meanwhile, I gathered proof. Devin helped me find timestamps that matched emails from Nate's Wi-Fi address to my company. I pulled phone logs from my carrier showing her repeated calls. I printed photos of the car damage, the vandalism, and even the note that said, "He lied to you too." It was all there: motive, connection, evidence. But I wanted more than legal payback. I wanted them to feel exposed. So I set a trap. I used an old phone, created a fake email pretending to be an HR rep from my company, and wrote to Erica using a tone just professional enough to sound real. "We are aware of your communication regarding Miss Moore. Please provide documentation verifying your claims, or we will involve law enforcement." Within hours, she replied from her personal email address. She attached the fake background report again, the same one that got me suspended. Except this time, the metadata in the file listed Nate Harris as the document's author. That was my smoking gun, and I wasn't the only one who'd see it. Because my next step was to send everything: the psychiatric files, the fake report, the IP trace, the text messages, to one very specific recipient: Nate's employer. He worked for a real estate firm that branded itself on trust and integrity. I even included a neat little summary of how their employee had colluded with his mentally unstable ex-wife to falsify federal background information. But that was just the beginning, because I hadn't even touched the second half of my plan yet, the one that would make Erica's world implode from the inside out. And it all started with a phone call I made to her therapist. I called the clinic with my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I lied, said I was a friend of Erica's, worried about her, and asked if they could confirm she was a patient. The woman on the other end was careful and clinical, but after I told her I'd found the folder and that someone had left it in my mailbox, her voice changed. It went quiet in a way that made my skin prickle. Did you actually read those files? She asked. I said yes. She said, do you have a minute to come in? There are original records here that don't match what was mailed to you. Her tone was flat, not exactly sympathetic. More like someone delivering a verdict. I went. I won't sugarcoat it. The waiting room smelled like lemon cleaner and old magazines. I felt both ridiculous and like I was stepping into a courtroom. The therapist, Dr. Patel, met me in a small room, her face carefully unreadable. She slid a USB drive across the table and said 3 words that dropped me through the floor. Those are forged. Forged, she explained slowly. The packet in my mailbox, full of highlighted phrases and dramatic notes, was not the clinic's full file. Someone had pulled specific session notes, cropped them, added commentary, and printed them on official letterhead to make Erica look dangerous. Whoever did it had the time and the motive to manufacture a narrative. The clincher was when she opened a secure folder on her tablet and played me short audio clips, real session recordings with Erica's voice, calm, lucid, complaining about her husband's business practices, not about me. What did she say? I whispered. She reported financial irregularities at Nate's company, Dr. Patel said. She described meetings where invoices were altered, clients overcharged. She wanted an attorney. I advised caution. If you accuse someone of fraud, there are serious legal steps. She said she was scared of retaliation. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I pictured Erica torn, unstable, stalking me, and suddenly that image blurred. The woman in those recordings was not a crazed savant of revenge. She sounded scared, measured, naming dates, amounts, the people who handled the accounts. Then Dr. Patel did something else. She pulled up an email thread, internal messages the clinic had received, pressuring them to close Erica's file and ignore her complaints. The sender's email, a Nate Harris address. And under that, a short, sharp note from an attorney representing Nate's firm, asking the clinic to handle this matter discreetly. It slammed into me. Nate had been manipulating the situation not only by letting Erica in, but by silencing the actual witnesses to his misconduct. He'd used her instability as a smokescreen. He'd let, maybe even encouraged, her to act out in ways that would discredit her claims and protect his secret. And the forged packet left in my mailbox, Dr. Patel admitted she'd mailed it. Why would you do that? I asked. The anger in me was new and raw. She looked at me with tired eyes. Because whoever sent it to HR used the same language as the forgery. We feared someone was weaponizing these notes. I thought if you saw how edited they were, you'd take them to the police. She swallowed. I thought I was helping. Helping. By handing me stolen, doctored records and hoping I'd act, her explanation didn't fit any moral scale. But there was more. Dr. Patel showed me metadata from the document file, the version that had been emailed to HR. Its last editor was listed, Nate Harris. I sat back hard enough to hit the chair. My head buzzed. First, Nate was complicit with Erica. Now it looked like he had been actively manufacturing a narrative to destroy her credibility, and mine, so no one would listen if she blew the whistle. He had motive. He had means. He'd also used the clinic and the law to bury the truth. Dr. Patel closed the tablet slowly. If you want to take this further, I can provide originals and testimony, but you need to know something else. She paused, then added. Erica told me once, before she spiraled, that she believed exposing Nate would ruin more than one person. She feared what he'd do. My stomach turned. Fear, protection, calculated erasure. I left the clinic carrying copies of file headers, audio timestamps, metadata, and a new kind of certainty. The kind that comes when the world rearranges itself and the enemy sits across from you smiling like nothing's wrong. When I got to my car, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. You should have left it alone. Now everyone will see. That last line had no signature, but it had Nate's timing. I realized then the fight would be uglier than I imagined. And I finally understood the real choice I had. expose him and watch everything burn, or keep silent and let him keep lying. I spent the next 48 hours sitting on my couch, surrounded by paper, emails, copies, notes from the clinic. My mind kept looping the same question: why would he do all of this? The forged reports, the manipulation, turning two women against each other, it wasn't just about ego. It was too methodical, too desperate. I didn't have to dig far for the truth. It was already sitting in one of the emails from Dr. Patel's server backup. A short internal note Nate had accidentally sent from his work address months earlier. It read, "If she files, the audit will open everything. Handle it before it reaches the board. Handle it." Erica hadn't been crazy. She'd been right. She discovered he was laundering money through shell accounts using fake invoices at his real estate firm. When she confronted him, probably during those late-night talks after their divorce, he'd promised her he'd fix it, that he'd pay her off once the timing was right. But she kept pushing. She threatened to go to the board, and that's when he flipped the narrative. He started telling people she was unstable. He leaked pieces of her therapy records to his HR contacts. He planted fake background checks on anyone who got close to him, so if she ever named names, she'd look delusional. That was the horrifying reason. It wasn't love or jealousy, it was insurance. He turned people into distractions. He'd used her mental health history as a weapon, then used me as proof of her obsession. The entire triangle was engineered so he could keep stealing without anyone credible to stop him. I realized every part of my relationship with Nate had been a calculation. When he told me he loved that I was so put together, he was picking someone with a clean record to contrast with her instability. When he told me to stay quiet, he was just making sure I didn't dig deep enough to find what she already knew. The worst part? He'd actually believed it would work, because it almost did. I'd believed her to be a dangerous ex. I'd gone to the police with fake evidence he created. I'd been one more pawn in his cover-up. But now, holding the unedited audio files in my hands, I saw the full picture. Erica wasn't crazy, she was terrified. She'd known about the fraud, and she'd tried to blow the whistle. But Nate had destroyed her credibility before she could. That's why she crashed into my car, why she lashed out at me. She thought I was in on it. And in a way, I was, unknowingly, but still helping him hide. It made me sick. And for the first time, my revenge didn't feel like rage. It felt like duty. If I didn't stop him, he'd keep doing it to other women, to other people who trusted him. So I went quiet again, but not because I was scared this time. I was planning. I didn't care what it cost. Nate Harris was going to lose everything, his job, his reputation, and his sense of control. Because now I had the truth. And this time, I wasn't going to waste it. When I decided I was done being a pawn, I didn't picture fireworks or some cinematic takedown. I pictured documents, deadlines, and patience. The kind of slow, concrete dismantling that leaves no gray area. I wanted truth to land like an unavoidable accounting ledger. Neat, audited, undeniable. First, I hired a lawyer. I told her everything: the forged background check, the crash, Nate letting Erica in, the clinic's originals, the audio files. She didn't flinch. Instead, she laid out a plan that sounded boring and vindictive in the best way. Subpoenas, preservation orders, cease and desist letters, and an official whistleblower submission to Nate's firm's board and their outside auditors. Nothing dramatic, just procedure. Exacting, legal, immovable. We sent certified copies of the clinic's originals and Dr. Patel's statement to the county prosecutor, along with a timeline and the IP trace Devin had produced from the throwaway account. We included the forged document metadata that showed Nate's name as an editor. We attached photos of the vandalism, the crash report, and screenshots of Nate's evasive messages. My lawyer made sure the package was clean and complete, no theatrics, no leaks. That would come later. Next, I contacted an investigative reporter I'd met once at a networking event. I didn't want some tabloid. I wanted someone with teeth, who could turn a dry audit into a story the board couldn't ignore. I handed the reporter the same materials the prosecutor had. Within a week, the paper was running a two-part piece. Financial irregularities at Harrow and Lane, former partners' claims surface. They quoted the clinic's timeline, Dr. Patel's note about the forged package, and included a redacted audio clip where Erica spoke clearly about altered invoices and shell accounts. The article didn't accuse me of anything. It accused the firm of failing to investigate. Harrow and Lane put Nate on administrative leave the next morning. The auditors opened an emergency review. The board convened. The emails I'd kept, the ones where he'd told the clinic to handle it, were subpoenaed. When the auditors saw the trail, they froze. They found discrepancies and then more discrepancies. The kind of thing that kills careers and invites federal interest. People who had trusted him started calling. Clients asked for statements. The partners who used to joke with him in the office lobby suddenly avoided his desk. His phone messages were full of frantic texts begging for meetings. I kept my distance. I let the legal and journalistic machinery do the humiliation. I didn't need to scream it into the world. I just handed over receipts and let consequences stack themselves. Erica got her records cleared publicly. The clinic issued a statement about the forged documents and apologized for the breach. She sent me one message months later, simple, clean. "I'm sorry for what I did to you. You saved me." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Justice in small, boring, procedural steps had repaired more than I expected. My company reinstated me with back pay and a formal apology. I kept my apartment. I bought a new car, used, sensible, under my name alone. Nate, he was terminated, and prosecutors eventually brought charges related to fraud and obstruction. He hired lawyers, shouted about betrayal, and tried to paint himself as a victim. The world didn't buy it. He'd built his life on ledgers that couldn't lie forever. When it was over, I stood in my living room, looked at the envelope with the clinic's headers that had started the whole thing, and burned it in the sink. The smoke curled, ceremonial and small. I thought about the ways people weaponize silence, the ways truth gets muffled under reputations and charm. I thought about how close I'd been to losing everything because I trusted the wrong person. I kept one small thing from Nate's apartment, the ring, the stupid silver band he'd never sold. I clipped it into a keychain and used it as my apartment key fob. It's petty, I know. But every time I lock the door, the little metal clink reminds me that I hold the keys now. Not him. I don't believe in happy endings the way movies sell them. I believe in careful endings. The kind that take time, patience, and a lawyer who knows how to file things in triplicate. But I also believe in small, sharp satisfactions, like reclaiming your life from someone who thought he could write the story for you. And as for Nate, he lost more than he ever intended. I lost trust, but I got my life back. That, in its own quiet way, was perfect revenge.